Hello and welcome back. Brad here with clickmail.co. In this video, we're going to talk in our series here on evangelism training. We're going to talk about reciprocity. Okay. And reciprocity and what people in psychology in the psychological field call the law of reciprocity or the principle of reciprocity is this idea that God has put in all people everywhere on the earth with very little exception. And I'll go into that exception shortly. He's put in all of us this quality where when someone freely gives us something, what we perceive to be a gift, when they give us a kindness, we instinctively and unconsciously want to give a kindness or a gift back to them. And of course, God put this in us because what does he give us? He gives us gifts. And what does he want us to do? He wants us to move into him. And this is how we go back and forth and get closer and closer in relationship and build trust. Oh, they gave me some. Well, I could trust them with something, and that can be a physical thing. It can also be an emotional, or a mental. Right? We're sharing our thoughts. We're sharing. This can go in all of those directions. And so, when you give a gift, when you give something to someone that meets a need, and that's the important thing. I can give my wife a fancy diamond ring, and you'd be like, "Oh, you did so good." Except for the fact that she doesn't care about that. She doesn't want the diamond ring. That's just not who she is. And so I can give her this beautiful diamond ring and it's the best gift ever, except she doesn't care about it because it didn't meet her need. She would really rather love to get some roses. That would hit home more than fancy jewelry. And I know that. And so what do? I meet the need. And that's what we need to do. If we want to have someone reciprocate, we have to communicate to them in a language they know. And the language that they know is what they need and what their problems are. So let's talk about that. How does Jesus do that? Well, in the New Testament, Jesus goes to the fishermen and he meets them on the boats, Peter, James, and John. And he says, "Oh, you've been fishing all night?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Great, throw your nets over and you're going to pull up a whole bunch of logs." We didn't say that. Well, pull your nets over, pull your nets up and you'll get a whole bunch of grain. No, they're not lumberjacks. They're not, wheat growers. They're not farmers. That's what wheat growers. They're not farmers. He's not giving a gift to farmers. He's not giving a gift to lumberjacks, right? It's not wood. It's not wheat. What are they? They're fishermen. He gives them fish. He gives them the thing that they need. They just worked all night. Now they can't, right? I know it came out in the recent series where they couldn't pay their bills, but it's like, well, what do they need fish for? Well, that was their job. They need to pay the bills and they've got no fish. So that's a huge need. That's panic mode. Like, we got nothing to eat and we got nothing to pay for bills with. Oh, here, let me meet that need. And then what happens? He shifts it and he says, well, if you follow me, I'll give you something better than those fish. I'll make you fishers of men. Who even knows what that means? They don't know what he's talking about, but they're like, all right, leave the fish. Let's go with him. Why? They're reciprocating, right? Same thing with the woman at the well. Oh, water, physical water. It's so important. Well, if you knew who you were talking to, you'd ask me for living water that never runs dry, right? And as she figured it out, she's like, oh, you must be a prophet. Oh, you're the Messiah. Living water never runs dry. Go and run, tell the whole city, convert the whole city. Why? She's reciprocating, right? This is what this is. It's just a natural part of human interaction, and it should be a natural part of our sort of evangelistic conversations and gospel messages. Okay. So how do we get this? Well, we have to meet a need. And let me tell you, by far the biggest need that you can meet is to just be quiet and listen and know how to ask questions. If you don't know how to ask people good questions, we'll do future videos on it, but man, look it up. Open questions, empathizing and just rephrasing what people are saying and not even talking about yourself. And again, when I end up sharing the gospel or I end up speaking into someone's life because they have invited me to do so, they don't usually know me at all. I never talk about me. I just listen. And so this is the most important need you can meet. And here's the reason why. Nobody has anybody to listen to them anymore. Everybody has these problems. Everybody has this pain in their life on account of we live in a fallen world and the internet has isolated us. There's a lower child birth rate in countries all over the world. So people have less kids. Marriages are falling apart at higher rates than ever. They're falling apart. We're also getting married less, right? And we're cohabitating and that's not working and all this stuff. And so people are so alone. more than ever. And when they are talking to you, and as we've talked about in other videos, when they show that sort of crack in the facade of, yeah, my life's super great. I go home and I watch Netflix every night and cry alone. It's like so great. And then they show you that little crack and you can just ask about it. Oh, well, yeah, I'm sorry to hear it's a bad day. Tell me, I'd love to hear more about that if you're willing to share. Oh, my goodness, someone who's willing to listen that actually cares. Please let me tell you all of it. That's as soon as they open that crack, that's what they're saying. As soon as you start listening, they start building trust. And when you listen, this is how you have to listen in a non-judgmental, non-criticizing, don't offer your opinion, just accept what they're saying and be present in the moment and just say, wow, oh my goodness. I'm so sorry that happened. That must be so difficult. Tell me more about that. What's your plan? Or do you know what you're going to do? Have you thought about this at all? Just let them talk. Don't offer your opinions. Don't offer anything. Just let them get it out. Okay. And at some point, they will tell you when to share. Okay. And I know that's the craziest thing ever, because what do? We're always awkwarded out and we're always like, oh, when do I share the gospel? How do I do this in a way that's not super weird and I'm not panicking? You're just talking. You're listening. You're saying that's really, really fascinating, or that's difficult, or that's such a challenge. My goodness, tell me how's that working for you, right? And you're just listening. Okay, so we're listening, and at some point they'll tell us when to reciprocate. Now, here's usually when they'll tell you you can share, and they'll invite you to do it. That's when the door opens, and you're like, bingo, that's when you go in. And not until then. So you're watching for that opening. Well, here's when the opening usually comes. You're sharing, you're having polite conversation. They show you the little crack in the facade. They're like, it's a rough day. And you go, tell me more. I'd love to hear more about it. If you're, hey, we're sitting here. I'm always in the hot tub. Just like, we're in this hot tub. Hey, like, I'm not going anywhere. If you want to share, I'm all ears, but there we go. You're going in. And they start sharing, they open it up a little more. You keep asking questions. And the point when it starts to get emotional for them, when they're sharing things that are unprocessed and raw emotion, maybe sometimes they're crying, or you'll notice they get angry, or maybe not at you, but maybe at the situation, or it's just really tense because they're right. Or maybe it's guilt or whatever it is. And they're just telling you this emotion and you can see it on them. That is a pain point. That is a need. They have not processed that. They don't know what to do with that. That is beyond their current limitation. That is the edge of that person. And there's a pain there. There's a wound there. And that is when, if you just let them talk and just let them process, right? Just ask them questions. Just let them figure it out. Don't give advice. Just listen. And when you do that, at some point they'll go, oh my gosh, like I've I've literally had people tell me this. In one of the other videos, I mentioned that I had a Satanist who came up to me. He realized I was a Christian. I was hanging out with some friends at a hot tub, and he comes up and he's upset with me. He's like, "Are you a Christian?" And it's like, "Yeah, what are you?" And he's like, "Well, I'm a Satanist and she's a Wiccan." And it's like, right there, he's priming the pump for, oh, well, you need Jesus. And then it goes south. Well, didn't do that. Said, that's so fascinating. Come in here. Tell me about it. What does that mean? I never met a Satanist. Tell me all about it. I listen. He's got 20 years of anger and bitterness and resentment for the church for good reasons. Because, boy, he really went through it. He grew up as a Christian. And at the end, after he got out all that anger, and I just listened, he goes, I feel so rude. I've been talking for 40 minutes and you've just been listening. What about you? This is a guy who came over super hostile, ready to get into it and get into a fight and debate and do this whole thing that we always did, whatever. And he's asking me for my opinion, and they'll do it for you too. And they'll do it all of the time. And all you have to do is just listen and let them process that pain. And then they'll want to know. And they say, well, what about you? Oh, what do you think? What would you do? When they ask for your opinion, ask for permission, even though they gave you permission, ask for permission, and then you can share in a sensitive way. All right. So thanks for being here. Love you guys. Got a whole playlist on this subject, evangelism training. And then in addition to that, we've got a couple blogs on this that are very large that break this down in text, if that's what you'd like to see. And love it if you would subscribe. Let me know what kind of stuff you'd like to see on this in the future. God bless.